Pre-production, the recording process, step 3. We are continuing our series where we cover the entire recording process, or record-making process, I should say, from the writing all the way to the finished master. We're going through all the steps that usually go into making a professional record. If you haven't listened to the previous ones, there's one where we give you the overview of the 10 steps. And then we started with step 1, which was the foundation, the writing, the planning, the vision for the project. Then we went to step 2, which is getting the right gear for the project, including instruments and all that, and what matters, what doesn't matter. We gave you a hierarchy there. And now we're on to step 3, which is pre-production. Hello, if you're new to the show, my name is Benedikt. I am a host. I'm the host of this show, and I'm a mixing engineer. I run a mixing studio called Outback Recordings. I've been running that for, I've been saying 15 years for years now. I feel like it's like not really true anymore. I don't actually know. I started this in like 2008 or 9-ish, so it's actually more than that. It's like 18 years now or so. Been doing full production for about 10 years and then transitioned to mixing only, which is what we do now. I work with another engineer here at my studio, and then also we brought Manel onto the team, who is going to do hopefully more stuff with us in the near future. And Manel is also my co-host here on the show. He's my friend and co-host from Spain, fantastic producer, songwriter, mix engineer, Manel Espinosa Berenguer. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hello, Benny, and I'm really happy because today we have a really amazing number, like episode number. It's episode 300.
Hold on. Wait a second. Episode 300. I wanted to do that before, but that's fine.
I thought you were joking about the drum roll thing.
No, there is a drum roll.
Okay. So,
you know when I'm joking when I do this. That's when you know when I'm joking, right? So.
But did you record those yourself, or?
No, they're here in our system.
Okay.
Also, a good sign that I was choking is when this happens. So no, since I didn't fire these, I wasn't choking. It's episode 300, and there's a drum roll. No, but yeah, continue with whatever you were about to say.
No, I was basically going to say congrats to you for making 300 episodes, which is, I think it's a crazy achievement because it takes a lot of time, obviously. Like you can multiply 300 for at least 2 hours per episode total. So that's a lot of time, but also a lot of consistency. So yeah, you are the living proof of consistency, Benedikt.
Why is this so long? I'm going to stop this. This is going on forever. Yeah, thank you. And also thank you for being with me on this journey. And thank you to Malcolm as well, our previous podcast co-host and friend who started this with me. I've done hundreds of episodes, or I shouldn't say hundreds, I don't know, 200 or something with him. And then at some point you took over. It's been a wild ride. It's been so much fun, so fulfilling. We've built a great community around it. And yeah, I love doing this every single day. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you for listening, all you out there. Like, definitely. We wouldn't be doing it if no one would be listening. So thanks a lot as well. We should have planned probably something special for the 300th episode. I'm so in the middle of doing so many things right now that I just didn't do that. But maybe it's also just fine. What you just said made my day. That's enough celebration, I think. So.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today while having a shower at the gym. And I was like, why do we always celebrate these numbers, Because like, if it had been 299, it has the same, power than 300 or 301. So if we want to do something special, we can do that next time. And it's fine. Like,
yeah,
who cares?
You're right. That's actually a good point. Yeah, you're right. Cool. So, yeah, glad we're still here. Now, In case you don't know yet, like if you're new to the show, this is a show where we help you make exciting records from your jam space, from your home studio. So if you're into DIY recording, this is the place to be. We have this backlog of 300 episodes now that you can go through on all kinds of things that go into music production, but also music promotion sometimes and other adjacent things. We have had amazing guests on here, like Grammy winners, great producers, experts from the music industry. Like if you just look through our backlog of episodes, you'll definitely find names that you'll know. So do that. Also, this series is going to be a required sort of listening for everyone to just go through the entire process and hear it all. And yeah, we've been not just doing this podcast. This podcast is part of a bigger thing, which is a coaching platform. It's called the Self-Recording Band, just like this podcast. And on this platform, we run a coaching program, the Self-Recording Syndicate, and in there we coach people and help them make records from their home studios, but not just with information like this podcast, this free podcast, but with actual personal guidance, with step-by-step plans for each one, for each person, with unlimited feedback and all the good stuff. So if you are thinking about getting some more help with your next production, if you want a professional team of producers helping you finish your next project, or just learn how it all works and give you feedback on your music and recordings, then you can apply. If you go to the selfrecordingband.com, you can fill out a quick form, then we see if it's a great fit, and if it is, we'll jump on a call with you and talk about whether or not coaching makes sense for you. But this is basically what we do here, just in case you just discovered us. But now, before we get the angry comments on YouTube again, we're going to get to the meat of the episode now. This is on YouTube. This is also an audio podcast, so you can listen on the go on all the podcast apps. This is what it primarily is and what it started as. Now it's also a video form on YouTube, so choose whatever you prefer. If you want to see Manel's beautiful face, you need to go to YouTube, and if that doesn't matter to you, you can just listen. All right, so pre-production, let's get into this. I want to interview Manel today on this topic because for a couple of reasons. First of all, you do a lot of production, whereas I do a lot of mixing. Mm-hmm. And I help people with pre-production still, or with production to get them ready to, send me the mix-ready files. But it's not the day-to-day sort of thing that I do. I do mostly mixing. And you are involved with people way earlier in the process oftentimes and help them, build the songs. You write a lot of your own songs. You work on just creating a lot of music and not just mixing it. And part of the creation is not just the actual recording, it is everything that comes before that. And so here's the thing. Many people are confused about the term pre-production, and I've seen it used in many different ways. When I talk to people on our clarity calls, for example, when they apply for coaching, or when I talk to the people in our program, or other people that I interact with and artists that I work with, for some, pre-production is everything that happens prior to recording. For some, they confuse it and they say pre-production when they actually mean recording. So to them, production is what happens in the computer when they mix and all that, and the recording they call pre-production, which is, I think, not correct, and most people will not use it that way. But in case you are one of those people, I know what you mean. I hear you. This is just one way that I hear it used. And then there's a third camp, and this is where I am in. For me at least, there is a distinction between the first phase, which is the writing and recording of like rough demos and just working on the songs, and then actual pre-production, which is what we covered today on this episode. And there is no clear right or wrong here. So some people might put that together, and everything that happens before recording is pre-production to them, which is totally fine. It is pre-production. So that's literally what it means. For me, pre-production is a distinct step after the writing, sort of. But this is not a right or wrong thing. This is just how I look at it. And so this is like my way of looking at it. And I want to interview Manel and ask you how you typically do it and what it means to you. And we're not going to repeat ourselves. So all the things that go into writing a song, we covered that in step one. And then we have, individual episodes on songwriting, on lyrics, on key and tempo, and all those different arrangement things and all that. So you can absolutely listen to those if you want to go deeper. We're not going to repeat ourselves. But we're going to go into the specifics of why pre-production actually matters and what the goal of it is and what we're trying to accomplish here. So for me, the way it works, like I said, is I write a song, or an artist writes a song, which can start with a simple chord progression and lyrics and maybe a melody line or something like that. They record rough demos of that, and they work on the song. They add instruments, they add parts, they they turn the rough idea into an actual song. This is kind of the writing process. And then when that's done for me, when I have a song that I can listen to, or I'm like, okay, that is kind of our blueprint, that's when I start the pre-production, the real pre-production. So someone comes in with a rough demo, and then I take them through pre-pro, which to me is refining that early demo and preparing that song and the artist themselves, and maybe their setup or whatever is necessary for the actual production at the studio or at their home studio. This is how I look at it. So the goals and the what's included for me is making sure they understand their basic setup and they can use everything intuitively, and there's nothing that could come up in the session that's actually distracting. So we try to get everything out of the way and make sure everything at least works. We don't pay attention to the precise microphone positions yet and all the dialing in the tones. That's not part of it yet. It's just making sure you actually have a working setup and there's no bottlenecks. This is a DIY recording specific thing that you wouldn't do that in the studio because people know how it works there. But like for DIY people, this is part of it. Then it is finding figuring out what the workflow is going to be like. Are you going to record live or overdubs? Maybe we need to test that and see what you like better. It will be about, who needs to hear what the scratch tracks need to be like. Do you need a click or not? Do you like all these kinds of prep things for the session? Then if it's about finding the right, figuring out which room we're going to record in, maybe optimizing the room, getting to know the room, like all these, again, prep work things. And then it's refining the demo that we have and making sure that it's actually recordable, because you have a song, you worked on that, you know what you want in there, the arrangement is pretty much done and all that, but still from a recording perspective, there might be things that could be improved. So maybe we need to double something and to get a better stereo image. Maybe we need to maybe there's something that you can't play well yet, and so then we need to either make sure you practice, and that becomes part of the pre-production process, or we need to simplify it so you can actually record it well. It could be that the song works, but now we figure out when we go a little deeper and we analyze it and we make the final plans, maybe it means that a part needs to be twice as long or just half the length, like little optimizations like that. And we just turn the rough demo into the definite sort of blueprint for the actual recording session. So bottom line, there can be different things for different projects and people, but for me, it's like I start pre-production with a rough demo in place. It's more or less finished, in some cases more, in other cases less, but there is an existing song. And now we refine that song, fix whatever is difficult about it that makes it hard to record or that will not make it sound ideal, optimize this demo for recording, and prepare both the song, the people, and the gear to so they are ready for the actual session. That's how I see pre-production. And when in most studios that I've been to and most of the projects that I've worked on, this was kind of the case. The band would contact the studio about wanting to record something. They would have a demo that they tracked in their gem space usually. They would say, this is what we have. We want to record it properly. And then they don't just go straight to recording. They start with the pre-production process. So optimizing all of those things. That's why I see it that way. It might be different for you or others because you start from scratch basically, and it becomes this one process. I think maybe I'm wrong. So now here's where the interview begins. What is pre-production to you? Is there a difference to what I just explained? And what would you like to add to that before I get to my specific questions?
Well, I think in my case it's very blurred into my process, and I guess this depends on how your process is, right? For me, that normally I work with solo artists who are not instrumentalists, like they can play a little bit of guitar or a little bit of piano here and there, but it's not their main thing. So in my case, now that I'm thinking about it, because normally I don't think about it, but I would say that, there's the first part of the process, which is more like the foundation writing, where they write their lyrics and chords, and that's when they send them to me. And I guess that is when I would consider that pre-production starts, when we have a good conversation about the references, the song, about where or how do we want the different instruments to sound and what instruments do we need. So probably that conversation is what I would consider pre-production, but the demo that they send me is a very basic one with vocals and acoustic guitar or piano or something like that. So I think it's different when you work with a band, because they work a little bit more in the demos normally. Like they have different parts already and stuff. So I guess that for me, pre-production would only be that conversation that I have with the artist about where do we want to bring the song. And once I start to work on the song, and that's already production, I think, because I started dialing in the tones, recording things. So yeah, I think in my case, in most of the projects that I work on, pre-production is kind of diluted into between songwriting and the production, but yeah, it's kind of blurry.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, but that's fine. I just Googled here because I wanted to know both of our two definitions, and then also I just Googled what is pre-production in music. I just wanted to see what comes up and what the AI says, and if there's any video on it or whatever. So here's what it says, and it's interesting to see if we agree with that or not, or if it's aligned with what we just said. So the AI says, in music, pre-production is the crucial planning and preparation phase before a formal recording session, involving refining song ideas, arrangements, instrumentation, and sonic direction through rough demos and rehearsals to ensure the studio time is efficient and focused on capturing the best performances. It's about making key creative decisions up front, like tempo, key, structure, and vibe, to save time and money in expensive studio environments and achieve a polished final product. Key activities in music pre-production: songwriting and arrangement, developing song structures, chord progressions, melodies, deciding which instruments play what. Demo recording, creating rough recordings, demos to test ideas, explore instrumentation, and refine the song's blueprint. Rehearsal, practicing until performances are tight and consistent. Sonic direction, discussing musical influences, desired vibe, and overall sound with producers or engineers. Technical planning, choosing keys, tempos, potentially selecting mics and equipment based on the intended sound. Why it's important: saves time and money, prevents wasted studio hours, solving problems that could have been addressed earlier. Improves quality, allows focus on performance delivery rather than fundamental arrangement decisions during the actual recording. Provides clarity, creates a clear roadmap for the recording process, making it more relaxed and organized. Essentially, pre-production is about doing the groundwork so that when you hit record, you're ready to capture magic, not make major decisions. That's pretty much the words I use oftentimes when I explain this, which is fascinating. And I just Googled it for the first time. So some of this almost sounds like they quoted us, which could very well be because we have much content out on this subject. But yeah, I agree with the definition. And it kind of covers both of the things that we talked about, some of the stuff I talked about, but then it also covers a little earlier steps like the songwriting. And like you said, it all becomes this one process. And then it also goes into the conversation that you're having about vibe and vision and what you want this to sound like with the artist. Yeah. And then also it populated a video, showed up here by our friend Warren Hewart, where he talks about pre-production, and he says pre-production needs as long as it needs to take, and blah blah blah, and he says a couple of other things, but he also says that it's super important. So yeah, good. So basically, to sum it up, it could really be anything or everything that happens prior to going to the studio. I just think the difference is the starting point. That's, I think, is the major difference. Like, we should all do these things. We should all know what we want, have a discussion. If we don't know that yet, we should, whether or not we collaborate with someone, we have to have this discussion with ourselves or with someone else. We should all know what the song is going to be at some point and how it's going to be played and what instrument plays what and all that. We need to write the song. We need to practice the song. Like, all these things, everyone needs to do this. Where it starts, or like that's pretty much the only difference between your process and mine. Maybe that in my case, people come to me with part of the pre-production already done. And so from my perspective, it starts with an existing demo or song. And in your case, it could start from nothing or from a very rough idea. But all of those things need to be done eventually, and we could just call all of that pre-production. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think what makes the most difference is if you're working with a band or if you're working with a solo artist, which in my case, it's like if I was the session player for every instrument, right? Because like there's no rehearsals for me. For me, it's like idea, boom, boom, record it. That's what it is. But I remember in, my past times with my band that we would have a lot of rehearsals. I remember I had rehearsals only with the drummer to like refine things and stuff before getting into the studio and recording and all that. So
same here. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense. The definition makes sense. It's just that depending on the context, some things make sense and some things do not.
Yeah. Good point. Glad you brought it up. The whole prepping can involve you just having isolated sessions between drums and bass, maybe, or guitar and drums, or just the guitars to make sure that the strumming patterns are really tight, or, figuring out some parts. Like we did that all the time. We had guitar only rehearsals or drum and bass rehearsals or rhythm section only rehearsals or no vocals or whatever, like things like that to really zoom in on those things. So that's actually a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, yeah. Things that you should not be doing at the studio.
Yes, that's pretty much it. That sums it up. I think pre-production should be anything that would make the actual session slower, less creative, less intuitive, less in any way worse. Basically, everything you can do in advance to make the session and the results better, that's considered pre-production. I think that's how you can really sum it up. And because if you come prepared, you're going to have a much better time at the studio. And here's one important thing, and this is my next question for you, Manel. Mm-hmm. When we say this, people might think, oh, so I have to plan everything ahead of time and everything needs to be set in stone. And then when I start my recording session, I just record what I've done before, basically, I record it properly. And it sounds like a very rigid sort of process. This is not the case. Like, I just want to point that out. So for me, it means, yes, we have a perfect blueprint, or as close to perfect as possible, where it's not about the sound yet. It's really just about capturing the song itself and planning it a little bit. This is also important. If you go into too much detail in the pre-production process, then that's just wasted effort and energy and focusing on the wrong things. So only focus on the song until pre-pro is done, and then you can worry about the technical stuff in the actual recording session. But here's the thing. We have this almost perfect blueprint in terms of the song, at least. But that doesn't mean that it can't change in the recording session. There is still room for creativity and spontaneous ideas. It just means that in case we don't come up with anything new anymore, and it is what it is, then it would still be a complete song that's amazing. And like, quote unquote, worst cases, we just track what we created in pre-production, but we do it properly with good sound, and then we have our song and it's awesome. Best cases, we do that, but we add maybe some more cool ideas that come up in the session or whatever. Like, this is totally allowed. And it actually frees you up to do more of that, and it gives you more mental bandwidth, because if you don't have to worry about, hey, are we actually playing the same riff here? Is this actually the same timing? And why do you play this? I thought it was twice as long. And what was the tempo again? And like, if you don't have to worry about these things because that has been taken care of, then your mind is free to like just you just play what you've planned, but then also you can spontaneously add things, and your mind is free to think about new things and come up with new ideas because you're not busy making sure that you actually know what you're doing there. So this is the beautiful thing about it. And this is my next question to you, Manel. How, do you leave room for changing the song, the arrangement, the performances, whatever, in the actual recording session? Or is it really you just re-record the demo, period?
I think I've never, ever had a vocal session where the final result was exactly the same than the demo. Like there's always things that change, some ideas that you have, I don't know, because of the energy of the song or the moment. Normally, when you, or at least that's what I try, when you record vocals or whatever instrument, you try to do it in a moment where you are, fresh and with, full battery.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're doing the pre-production and preparing things and stuff, maybe you're more like tired. You're not in that zone, right? So I would say that every time something changes, and there's no. I mean, that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, cool. So there is definitely room for that, and you don't have to just recreate the demo. You can absolutely do new things. And like I said, that's part of the beauty of it. Just so people know that. The next question that people will definitely have, and I know it because they ask me this all the time, is why do I need to re-record anyway? Like, why do I need to re-record at all if I already recorded it in pre-production, sort of? That's what a lot of people don't get. They get the idea of writing and doing a rough demo first and all that. But once you get to the point where it's pretty complete, why do I not just go straight to mixing it? Why do I have to re-record at all? And so my answer to this, and again, I'd love your thoughts, but my answer is primarily that if you want to do a proper, quote unquote, proper recording, and proper doesn't mean polished, and people confuse these terms all the time. When I say proper, I don't mean everything has to be perfect and polished and everything sounding the same or whatever. It just means the way you want it to sound. So if you want to do a proper recording and record and don't cut corners and get the best possible results, you have to do a bunch of things that would be just too much effort and work when you're still in the writing and pre-pro process. And you don't want to do these things every single time because they get expensive and exhausting and all that. And so what I mean is, in a real recording session on professional productions or professional sounding productions, almost always you'll have a great guitar setup, fresh strings, fresh drum skins. You'll figure out exact mic positions. Like engineers will move mics like in very, very small increments until you hit the sweet spot where it sounds right. You will do a proper drum setup and tune it all meticulously, which can take hours. You test different amps and cabs. You play different guitars to see which one works. And if you're only doing it at home, you might go through different cab sims and amp sims, or you do all this intense setup and sound check work to make sure that the instruments at the source sound the best they can, and that the cabs and the mic positions sound the best they can, and it's all right. Like all the stuff you do in a great session when you set up, you don't want to do that every single time you write a song or improve a song or work on a song when you're just creative. You just want to go and capture the quick idea. And it doesn't matter if there's old strings on the guitar. It doesn't matter if the mic is in the perfect spot. It doesn't matter if the room sounds a bit weird. You want to just have a quick creative setup during pre-pro and demo phase where you can just hit record as soon as you have an idea and you can just go. And then once all that is done, then you do the great setup thing. And then you go to actually recording. Same is true for practicing, right? For practicing, you don't always have to have new strings on it and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to time to record, actually, you want to do those things. Not the same for every project, and not everyone goes into that much detail, but most people do in a professional context for good reason. And so this means if you don't do pre-pro, then you will, or if you write and then immediately go to recording, you'll either cut corners and make compromise when it comes to the sound, because you're not going to put on new strings and do all the things. I'm just repeating the new strings thing, but you're not going to do all of the things that go into making a record. That's one scenario. Or you do it every time that you write and work on songs, which is incredibly tedious, exhausting, and expensive. And so that alone is reason enough to just do pre-pro and separate the processes. That's the whole reason. And now here's my question on this for you, Manel.
Mm-hmm.
Does it still happen, and do you think it's okay when it happens, that you've captured something as a rough idea in demo phase, not thinking about it as the final recording? You just captured an idea, you worked on the demo, you were in pre-pro mode, you didn't worry about the technical stuff, and then when you go to the actual recording session, you realize that felt really great. I think I just want to use it exactly like that in my real session. I don't want to re-record. Does that ever happen? And do you think that's okay?
Yeah, that happens every time. Yeah. Also, and I think that's okay. Like, I don't think you have to re-record things. Like, it's not.
You don't have to do anything, basically.
You don't
in music.
have to
It's
do
art,
anything.
Like,
but most of the time, especially with specific instruments, it's the best option. For me, for example, when I work now, I have all my guitars and bass here that I can pick, and which is really, really interesting. And it can happen that one day I make half of the song, and the next day I start again, and I don't remember the gain that I had, and so it doesn't sound exactly the same the second half of the song. But I don't care, because when I'm working on the pre-production or whatever, I want to be fast. I don't want things to get on my way. So if I need to, pick the bass, play a couple notes, and then pick the guitar and play something else and switch between those things, then I'll do it. But that's not the best idea if you are recording a final song. A different thing is if you record a little arrangement that you think it sounded special or something like that. And when you have some experience, you know if that needs to be re-recorded or not. But one thing, and one crucial thing that changes the sound, is the strings, right? I think it's really important to have fresh strings when you're recording, especially your rhythm parts. I would say that's the most important thing. But on the other hand, there are also, lately, I've been, or recently, better said, I've been experimenting with different plugins in a way that I've spent a bit more time than usual, dialing in some tones, because I knew that having those tones during the pre-production process was going to influence the way I play quite a lot, right? I was experimenting with fuzz, that it sounded in a way that it wasn't great to play whole chords with that, because it's, I don't know.
Typical for fuzz. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes me play more like single notes and, go through a different approach. So I did that with plugins, and basically I didn't change the plugins for the final recordings, right? But even though I did that, I record those things again. So yeah, I think there's some room to
get it,
but mostly I think you need, or it is the best option for you to re-record or properly record, only thinking about recording at the end.
Cool. Thank you for all of that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's great. And and so basically it is allowed to take something from the demo and just put it into the actual session if it sounds and feels great, and if you can't recreate it in any better way, that's totally fine. It happens all the time in professional scenarios. So the question is always can I do better? Yes, no. If I can in any way, then I do it. And if not, then I'll just keep the one from the demo. You just got to be honest with yourself here. So the questions to ask yourself in pre-pro is how, the only question that matters is, or the two questions are, how can I make the song better? And the second question is, do I have everything I need to start the session with and work on the session without interruption? Basically, am I prepared and all the songs prepared? Those are the questions during pre-pro. And there's nothing about gear in there. The gear, yes, that you have a setup, but nothing about precise mic positions, nothing about technical stuff, nothing about plugins, none of that. It's really just, is the song good enough? can I really play it? And do I have everything I need for the session? Those are the only questions you need to ask in pre-production. Everything else doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it sounds like technically. It's really just about the songs. And then in the actual session, you don't want to think about those things anymore. You can add to it, but you don't have to. But you don't want to think about those things anymore. And then the question is, now, can I record the thing I created in my creative phase in the beginning? Can I record that in a way that makes it sound and feel much better? Or was there just a magic moment in there that I just can't recreate, and then I just pull it into the session and just re-record the rest? If you follow that kind of process and ask yourself those questions, you'll be good, I think. And just going to be honest with yourself. Just to give you examples of when that happens. So we had Warren Heward on the podcast before, a couple times actually now, from Produce Like a Pro. You might know his channel there, and he has worked on like many major like records, and just a well-known producer, super nice guy as well. We've been on stage with him and did talks, and he was on this podcast as well as a guest. And I remember him telling a story or two stories where one of them was, forgive me, Warren, in case you ever see this, I forgot the names of the artists. But what he said was there was one example of an artist who sent him a demo of an acoustic guitar recording for a record, and then his job was to produce the record. And then Warren did what a producer usually does, and he wanted to he recorded the guitar, quote unquote, properly. So instead of the DI recording that the person sent, he set up microphones, which is usually better for acoustic guitar. He recorded the guitar properly at the studio, and he built the song around it and all that. And then he sent it back to the artist who sent in the demo. And then the artist was like, "What did you do with my guitar recording?" And he was like, "I recorded it properly." And then the artist said, "No, like it has to be the way I sent it to you. This needs to stay because it sounds and feels awesome. And it might not be technically perfect, but I really loved how it felt and sounded." And so despite the new recording sounding better technically, there was something about the original one that the artist just loved. And so then they made that work in the mix and kept it, basically. That is not always the case, but this is one example where it made it from the demo to the actual recording. The other example was that someone had to record backing vocals to something, or they were brainstorming ideas for backing vocals, and I think the artist recorded backing vocal ideas into the laptop microphone while sitting at the airport. and this was not meant to stay on the record, but for whatever reason he did it in such a good way and it felt so right that they had a hard time recreating it in any better way. And so in this case they kept the airport laptop recordings as backing vocals on the song instead of recording them properly again, because whatever happened, it just felt right in that moment. So those are like examples of situations where it can happen. So it's definitely allowed to do that. It's just not the norm, and the danger is that you convince yourself that everything you've done in the demo is already good enough and perfect, and don't do that. Like, be honest with yourself. Try and compare, and make a decision based on the situation. It's not always the case that demos are the best. Yeah. So what else comes to mind, Manel, when you think about recent productions or something maybe that you've done with artists? Is there anything else you typically do in pre-pro, or typical problems, or maybe you leave it open to a degree? I don't even know if you finish pre-pro to the degree that I outlined. Maybe you don't even go all the way to a finished demo. Maybe there is a definition of done for you, or a good enough where you can move on to the actual session. I don't know. Is there any additional thoughts to this?
No, I basically make a demo, and when multiple versions of a demo until the artist is happy, 100%. And when he or she gives me the okay, everything is good, then I re-record. Like I do that proper real recording, right? Yeah. And things that normally happen for me in the proper recording is, like, for example, when playing parts with big chords, especially with guitars, I tend to record the parts like one single chord at a time. Because if I don't do that, then you hear the noise when I'm going to the next chord, which can be desired at some point, or in a concrete song or whatever, but normally, especially when going for more like high gainy, modern kind of sounds, I tend to play guitar play the chords one by one. I never do that during the like making the demo because that takes a lot of time, and I don't really. It's not interesting to be honest. But when you hear the result, it's fine, right? And
Yeah.
I think that also when you are only focused on recording, it's easier to give your best, like in terms of like rhythm, timing and intonation and all that. And also in terms of feel, even though, sometimes when recording the demo, magic happens and whatever. But normally, for me at least, it's easier when I'm doing the proper final recording to think about the energy that the song needs at that certain moment, what the lyrics are saying, even stuff like that, and play accordingly, right? So, yep.
Yeah.
That's what I can add to that.
No, that's great. Cool. Thank you. Well, I think we can wrap it up here. No need to make it any longer than necessary. Do everything that's required prior to recording session so that you are prepared. And if you want to go deeper on this, if you go to the selfrecordingband.com/podcast, there's all the pages, the show notes pages for all of our episodes, and there's a search feature there. So if you type in pre-production there, you might find a couple more episodes on this topic if you just want to go deeper. If I don't even know if that's necessary, but I know that there's some older episodes where we talked about this already. And then again, you can listen back to steps 1 and 2 of this whole process, and then the overview of all the 10 steps. And next week, we're going to go to step 4, which is the sound check, which is the day you arrive at the studio. And I know we're talking about self-recording, but just think about the situation when the band goes to the studio. Sound check setup is when the band arrives at the studio, songs are written, gear, equipment, room, studio, whatever is chosen. You and the songs are prepared for recording. Now you walk into the studio, and now what happens next? And that is step 4, the sound check, the setup. Now it goes into actually dialing in your final tones, positioning the mics correctly, setting up your instruments so they sound the best. Like all that sound check and setup stuff that would happen on day 1 at the studio, or sometimes the entire first week, depending on the budget of the project. Like on bigger budgets, it's not uncommon to spend a couple days on getting the best possible tones before you even record the first song. But it can also be just a matter of an hour or 2, depending on your project. So this is the next step. We're going to go and get into that because the source matters more than anything. And if you do all these steps correctly or right for your project, your taste, your vision, and what's in front of you, then you're going to have a much, much easier time later when it's time to mix the thing. You don't want to fight an uphill battle in the mix. You don't want to create the record in the mix. You want to get it right at the source. And a lot of it has already been covered. Next step is dialing in tones. All right. So with that, thank you for being with us for 300 episodes. I know that some of you have listened to every single one of them. I know that those people are out there. I even know some of them, who they are. So thank you so much for doing that. If you just discovered us, there's 300 episodes to go through. And we'll see you on episode 301 next week. And thank you, Manel, for being on this journey with me.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Goodbye.